What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gaelic Gridiron podcast. We have a very special episode today, and we are talking all things college football. Of course, the Erling's College Football Classic is coming up quickly, coming down the line in August, and delighted to be joined by game ambassador and former Irish international player Ian Madigan. Ian, how are you?
Very good. Thanks a million for having me on, Jimmy. Yeah, proud to be on as an ambassador for the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. And yeah, excited to talk about, I suppose, seeing some of the Irish players going over and trying their hand either in college football and the NFL. And yeah, really excited for the game to go ahead on August 24th.
Ian, I'll start off with a fairly easy one. Tell us a bit about how you got involved as an ambassador for this year's college football game.
Yeah, so I'd be really passionate about, not just the game itself. Now, when we're talking about rugby and you've got the likes of, Leinster playing Munster in the Aviva, it's very much still about the 80 minutes and the game itself. And I think what American sports have done particularly well is turning it into a day event. And, when I went over to Florida State and saw, the lead up, the night before there's a concert, the tailgating the day of a game, to the game itself, the actual the length of time it takes to play a college football game, you're looking at north of 3 hours. And then the fanfare that goes on afterwards, it's so much more than just the game itself. And I suppose what's very special about college football, is how it embeds itself into the community, and that reminds me very much of Gaelic games, and
Yeah.
how hurling and Gaelic football does that, but without the professional aspect. And for me, it's about pulling the best from each, being able to have the culture of GAA, how American sports can monetize the game, and then ultimately for me, it's about being able to feed that back into rugby.
Yeah. Well, that kind of brings me on to my next question very nicely, and that is, have you done anything fun so far in your capacity as an ambassador? I guess that would be the attending the Florida State game over there.
Yeah, the trip itself was amazing. Being able to spend time with the athletes, like I was genuinely blown away. I simply couldn't believe the quality of the athletes. And what struck me was how, in a way, genetic the game has become.
Mm,
You have to be a certain size or a certain speed or a
yeah.
certain height, and it's nearly a bit scary in a way, because you
They're
know
massive. They're absolutely huge, aren't they?
yeah, and have been in the gym with them and seeing the weights that they're lifting. I thought I was somewhat strong when I was playing. I certainly didn't feel that way when I was in the gym with them. And then, you go out onto the pitch and just the how far they can throw the ball, how far they can kick the ball. It's a game of excess. And yeah, just I probably got on the plane heading over to Florida State thinking, maybe I could have given it a go as a kicker. I was very, very quickly put back in my box when I couldn't kick the ball half the distance of Mastro Mano, the Florida State punter.
Did you ever, like, at any stage, obviously you achieved fantastic success with both Leinster and Ireland, winning a couple of Champions Cups and Six Nations tournaments, but did you ever towards, I suppose, at any stage of career consider a code change to American football?
In the middle of my career, I would have there was an option with rugby league, and
Mm,
I had Matt O'Connor as my coach, and he had left Leinster at that stage and ran the idea past me. Um, there was obviously the famous Ronan O'Gara story when he was in his contract negotiations, and he pulled a master stroke. So that I think off the back of that and not fully understanding exactly what had gone on, the purist in you would think, would there be a potential option at the end of my career to maybe go over and be a kicker for an NFL team. But for me, it actually didn't suit my style of
mm,
kick. The
yeah.
style of kick for an American football kicker, you've got to really kick down on the back of the ball, and then you've got to have an incredible triple extension and flexibility. My kicking technique with rugby was much more of a sweeping technique, and I used a different sweet spot on the ball, so I'd actually have the ball tilted up, and I'd use the end of the ball to then get a slow end over end motion, whereas the American football kickers kick down on the back of the
Mm.
ball. And that's something that I was never able to do well. I tried to do that when I was a place kicker in school, and I certainly wasn't too good at it. I was running at around 60 or 65%. So it was only really when I changed to that telescopic tee that I became a far more consistent kicker. But I knew off the back of that there wasn't a hope of me being able to compete with the top kickers in the States, or even the average kickers.
We're now seeing more and more crossover between rugby and American football, and even GAA to a certain extent. You have the likes of Lewis Reed Zammit, who's signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. How do you see this trend developing in the future, particularly with Irish athletes?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think the NFL, as a game wants to grow alongside obviously college football, and that's why they're looking at Europe for areas of growth, and I think for the college football classic, for the home of that to be in the Aviva is pretty special. I
Yeah.
think from an NFL perspective, I think it's definitely coming down the tracks sooner rather than later that we're going to have a London franchise, and that's going to significantly grow the game. I think the impact that it has on the economy it will be huge for not only the Irish economy with the college football game, but also in London having Americans consistently traveling over for games. And I think from a player perspective, if you can kick the ball particularly far, you that wouldn't necessarily get you on your intercounty team, but it could get you a
Yeah.
bumper contract in the NFL. It's crazy, but that's the reality of it because there's so many different elements to get Gaelic football. You need to be able to read a game. You've got to be able to defend and attack. You've got to be really fit. Whereas if you're someone who can literally just boom the ball consistently, better than anyone else, there could be a 2-3 million contract there for you in the NFL. So that's really exciting. And I think from a rugby perspective, following Louis Rees Sammet's story has been really exciting. From a rugby point of view, we obviously need the best players playing in the top competitions, whether it's Europe or the Six Nations. But that story itself has grown the game of rugby massively.
Mm. Um, Ian, obviously, I know we have a limited amount of time, and I really appreciate you again taking the time to chat with me today. What are you looking forward to most about this year's game in particular?
I think it's going to be a very competitive game. Georgia Tech, it's their home game, and they're coming over with a point to prove. Florida State went, unbeaten last year
Mm.
in the ACC, and they're gonna be backing themselves to get off to a winning start. So, like, first and foremost, the actual game itself, I think, is going to be the most competitive game that's come to the Aviva.
Yeah.
Notre Dame were obviously particularly strong last year, and that's going to help because people want to see a competition. That's especially Irish people, we love a tight battle. Sometimes we love not coming out
Something
on
something a
top.
bit more exciting.
Yeah, so that will be, and then I think just getting up close and personal with the athletes again, and showing them what the Irish hospitality has, and making sure that when they're getting back on the plane, they've had a week that they'll never forget.
Well, Ian, listen, enjoy the build up to the game, enjoy the game itself. Hopefully, we'll have the opportunity to catch up around then. And yeah, thanks again for joining us. All the best.
Brilliant. Thanks a million for having me on, Jimmy.
Cheers.